Good morning, New Life Kids. It is Sunday, and we are having Kids Church in person today. Aren't you excited? So if you're watching this video, you're watching it in one of two places. You're either watching it in our Kids Church classroom, or you're watching it at home, right? Or wherever you're, at. So if you're not with us, we miss you. We are excited for when you get to come back and hang out with us, but we understand that not everyone can be here right now. So we're super excited for when you come back, and we miss you so much. But for those of you here, I'm so excited to see your faces. I know I'm in the room with you right now, and I'm watching the video with you. That's kind of weird, isn't it? It's kind of weird. But we're going to do this. And you're going to start seeing more videos, and Miss Tammy's going to try and do some more creative things in our kids' church. So you'll see Miss Tammy will be in the room, but I'll also be on the TV sometimes. And that's just silly because, Miss Tammy's pretty silly. But today, Miss Tammy is crazy. So if you were at church last Sunday, you got a coloring page. But if you weren't at church, I had a coloring page I was going to send to you. And it did not go in the mail because I forgot. I got everything together, I just didn't send it. However, because we've made changes, I am going to send a little newsletter home with that to let you know all the stuff and changes we're making, and the things we're doing, and how that affects you, whether you're staying home or you're in person. And then if your parents want to contact me, if they have any questions or concerns, or maybe they have some suggestions, I'm always up for that, always willing to do that. So I'm so excited. Again, we miss you. If you weren't able to come to church today, we miss you. I'm so excited to see you, and I can't wait till that happens. Today, we are studying one of my favorite Bible stories. It is absolutely my favorite. It's in Daniel, and it's about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, okay? And I love this story. It is absolutely one of my favorite stories. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were part of God's special people, but they were no longer living in the land of Israel. They had been taken away to a land called Babylon. In Babylon, the king named Nebuchadnezzar. Now, it sounds fun to say, but when you read it, it looks crazy. It looks absolutely crazy. So King Nebuchadnezzar did not worship the one true God. He made a rule that all the people in his land had to bow down to a giant golden statue. No. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were faced with a tough choice, but they stood strong together. That's great, isn't it? So in our Bible story today, 3 friends were faced with a tough choice. They could bow down to a fake god, or they could worship the one true God. They all stood together and did the right thing. Right? It's hard sometimes to do the right thing, but it's helpful when you have your friends to do it with, isn't it? Let's read about it in Daniel 3, 8 through 18. So we're going to go to the book of Daniel, and we're going to do that in our kids' Bible. And we're going to do verses 8 through 18. So Daniel 3, one more page. There we go. But some of the astrologers went to the king and informed on the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king! You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and worship the gold statue when they hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and other musical instruments. That decree also states that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace." But there were some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you. Your Majesty, they refuse to serve your gods and do not worship the gold statue you've set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage, ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him. And when they were brought before him, he said to them, "Is it true that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I have set up? I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then what God will be able to rescue you from my power." Right? So King Nebuchadnezzar's like, I don't care who your God is. You should be worshiping these gods, the statue, and all of these things, and doing what I say. And if you don't, I'm throwing you in this furnace. Now who's going to save you, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "Oh, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." He said, we want to make it clear we will never worship you or your gold statue. That's pretty great. That he was standing up. All three of them were standing up against this king who wanted them to worship him and not the one true God, right? Friends help make us strong, and these three friends encouraged each other to do the right thing, even when it was a scary situation. They were indeed thrown into a furnace, but something amazing happened. Let's read the rest of the story. Okay, so in Daniel 3, we're in the same chapter, but we're going to go to verses 21 through 29, okay? All right. So they tied them up and they threw them into the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. And because the king, in his anger, had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers. As they threw the men in, so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. But suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men unbound and walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god." Then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Then the high officers, officials, governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their head was singed, and their clothing was not scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke. Then King Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted in him." What an amazing God we have, right? So not only did they survive being in the fire, not only did God protect them in that fire, but they didn't even smell of smoke or have any burn marks on them, and their clothing didn't even look like it had been in a fire at all. They had nothing on them that showed they had been in a fire. And now the king who wanted them to worship him is worshiping their God, the one true God. That's pretty amazing. Isn't that amazing? So our memory verse this week is, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants." Daniel 3, verse 28. All right, guys, wasn't this a fun story? I love this story. It just shows how amazing God is and how much power he has, that he can protect them in this situation because they stood strong and firm saying, no, we know the true God and we're not worshiping anyone else, only him. And because they said that, God protected them when they were faced with harm because of their stance. That means what they stood on. Because that means like their posture. Have you ever been standing and you're just like this, and someone comes and they kind of tap you and you like fall right over because you're not standing very strong. But then when you stand up and you stand strong and firm and your feet are planted firmly on the ground and someone comes up, they can't barely move you, right? That's what a strong stance is. These guys had their feet firmly placed on the ground for Jesus, for God. And they said, we know the one true God. And we are not going to turn from him. So God rewarded them by protecting them in that fire. And that's pretty great. All right, guys. So if you are in our classroom, we are about to get into the fun stuff. If you are not in the classroom, we miss you so much. We cannot wait till you're here. But again, watch out for those letters. And hopefully we will see you again real soon. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.